Hi, my name is Sarah Morrow. This is my presentation, A User's Guide to Measurements, and that photo represents kind of how I feel, how my brain feels when I start trying to think about all that that encompasses. First off, you should consider your concept. My concept is, does daily attendance at AA meetings help lower an alcoholic's level of depression? But it's important for me to be aware of the vulnerability of my measurements. I listed Dr. Brown's 7 tips below. So with my project, I looked at my measurements used. I'm using a Likert scale to measure depression with an intervention variable of meeting attendance, 2 weeks baseline, 2 weeks intervention, and with an A-B longitudinal study. Is my system valid? Thus far, the Likert scale is working to self-report depression levels daily. Is my system reliable? Self-reporting daily measures is working out to date. What are my margins for error? Content-based validity, and what are my potential biases? 2 that I can recognize are that acquiescence bias and social desirability bias, due to reputation and personal feelings about the AA program that my subject might have and wanting to protect that program at all costs. So let's talk about measurement errors, which I discussed. There are 3 types mentioned. Systematic, which is when the information reflects a false picture. And then also we have biases, which I just discussed. The quality of the measurement can be adversely influenced and misrepresented in a certain direction. Acquiescence response set is when people disagree or agree with most statements regardless of their content. Social desirability bias, which I know that I am privy to with my study, is when people tend to say or do things that will make themselves or their group look good. And then cultural bias, which is it stems from researcher ignorance or insensitivity regarding different cultures and their practices and values. And then there's random error with no consistent pattern. So a big factor is reliability versus validity. So reliability is the extent to which your results are consistent. They're repeatable, you can rely on them. Validity is the extent it measures, does your measurement system do what it's designed to do? Is it valid? And that one can be tricky with taking measurements on things like depression, self-esteem, or other subjective mood descriptions. Types of reliability are inter-observer and inter-actor, and that has to do with the degree of agreement among different sets of observers. You're looking for the consistency. Test and retest, which provides the consistency in measurement over time, meaning you could test them and retest them, and you're getting the same thing. And then internal consistency, which assumes the measurement contains multiple items and each is scored an average to provide an overall score. Within validity, you have different types as well. You have face validity, and that's the quality of the indicator that makes it seem reasonable, like a reasonable way to measure this. You have content-based, where the measure covers the range of meaning in the concept. Criterion related, which is based on external criterion, means you could select another indicator or measure of the same variable that our technique plans to measure and test the validity that way, see if they match. And then you have construct. So it's the degree to which the measure relates to other theoretical inferences that can be made. Like if I said, if depression is lower in my subject due to AA attendance, they will get along better with their work colleagues. I'm inferring something and hoping that validity will stay the same. And then you have factorial, which is whether the numbers and the items that make up the factors studied are what the researcher intends. And lastly, I hijacked Dr. Brown's awesome demonstration on reliability and validity because it really helped me understand it. By definition, if a measure is valid, it must also be reliable. But just because something's reliable doesn't mean it's valid. So you'll see the 3 great pictures, reliable but not valid. They're all hitting the same space, but it's way out of target. Then you have neither in the middle, and then you have valid and reliable. You're hitting the bullseye in the middle every time, and you're consistent. So that's my 5 minutes. I hope that's helped explain some stuff. Thanks.